Good evening. Vice President Sara Duterte says she will no longer pursue the requested 500 million peso confidential and intelligence funds for her office next year. In a statement, Duterte says the office of the Vice President will stop pursuing the secret funds because the issue is divisive, adding that she swore to keep the country peaceful and strong. According to the Vice President, her office would only propose a 2024 budget that would ensure the implementation of its programs against poverty and promote the welfare of Filipino families. The House of Representatives had removed the proposed 500 million peso confidential fund from the OVP and reallocated it to the government security agencies like the Philippine Coast Guard. Meanwhile, Department of Education budget sponsor Senator Pia Cayetano says Duterte has also dropped the DepEd's confidential fund request of 150 million pesos.
We are all parents who want to protect our children. Ang seguridad ng mga bata ay seguridad ng kinabukasan ng ating bayan. Nonetheless, DepEd will no longer pursue confidential funds. We humbly request that the funds be realigned to the National Learning Recovery Program because we do not expect good scores for the 2022 PISA result.
The Philippine National Police says murder and theft complaints were filed against 3 suspects involved in the brazen killing of radio broadcaster Juan Jumalon in Misamis Occidental on November 5. PNP spokesperson Colonel Jean Fajardo says the complaints were filed on Wednesday before the Provincial Prosecutor's Office of Misamis Occidental. She adds that only 1 suspect was identified by name while the 2 others were referred to as John Does in the complaint sheet. The police official explains that since they are still consolidating evidence, the PNP is refraining from disclosing the name of the identified suspect. She likewise declines to say whether the identified individual in the complaint is the same person in the computerized facial sketch that the PNP made public. Radioman Jumalon was shot to death while on a live broadcast over Misamis Occidental's Gold FM 94.7 early morning on November 5. His house in Calamba Town served as the location for the radio station. Meralco is increasing power rates in November by 23 centavos per kilowatt hour. The increase brings the overall rate for a typical household to 12 pesos and 5 centavos per kilowatt hour from 11 pesos and 81 centavos per kilowatt hour in October. This translates to an increase of 47 pesos in the total electricity bill of customers consuming 200 kilowatt hours. Meralco attributes the power rate hike to higher transmission and generation charges. Transmission charge is the cost of delivering power supply, while generation charge is the cost of power purchased from suppliers that accounts for more than 50% of the total bill. Senator Sonny Angara says Presidential Advisor on Creative Communications Paul Soriano is no longer connected to the government. Angara discloses this while defending on the Senate floor the proposed 2024 budget of the Office of the President. During Senate plenary discussions, Soriano's name is mentioned after Senator Coco Pimentel asked who paid for a Filipino ad campaign previously plastered on London buses. Angara says it was not the Office of the President and surmises the Department of Tourism might be behind the ad campaign.
May we know if the Office of the President or anyone in the Office of the President is
speculating.
even aware of that ad campaign?
They're only aware of it in the sense that they also saw it, Your Honor, but they don't really know where the funding came from it, but definitely not the Office of the President, not the OP, Your Honor.
Pimentel asks if it was not a certain presidential advisor behind the ad campaign, to which Angara suggests that the funds spent for the ad campaign were likely not from official funds. Still, Pimentel questions why no one seemed interested in finding out where the funding for the ad campaign was sourced.
Kailangan pa i-request pa pala dito yun, Mr. President.
Hindi rin nila alam, Mr. President.
Walang kusa, walang interest. Wala tayong interest sa what's happening. That's an ad campaign. It mentions our country. Sa London, wala. Nobody lifted the finger to find out. Background information, wala. No one.
It was still during the time of Paul Soriano, Director Paul Soriano, Your Honor. Is what I'm told. So, baka siya nakakaalam mo. We will ask.
Wala na ba siya ngayon?
Wala na po. Wala.
Wala.
Sought to clarify later if this meant Soriano is no longer presidential advisor, Angara says in a message that he just, quote, mentioned the answer of the palace relayed to him during the budget hearing. Malacanang has yet to confirm whether or not Soriano is still with the government. The palace announced last July that Soriano took a leave of absence due to personal matters. PHIVOLCS says it recorded the highest amount of sulfur dioxide emissions from the Taal volcano in 2023 on Thursday. In an advisory, state volcanologists say it recorded 11,499 metric tons of volcanic sulfur dioxide from the Taal main crater on Thursday, November 9. It says this is the highest figure recorded this year. Previously, the highest amount of sulfur dioxide emissions from Taal was at 9,762 metric tons recorded on October 12. No volcanic smog or VOG was observed over the volcano, but PHIVOLCS says that weather conditions on Thursday and Friday may stimulate VOG formation. It likewise warns that VOG exposure may cause health risks, especially for people with respiratory diseases, pregnant women, children, and the elderly. PHIVOLCS advises communities susceptible to VOG to limit outside exposure by staying indoors and closing doors and windows, and to protect themselves by using N95 masks. PHIVOLCS reminds the public that Taal volcano is still under alert level 1, meaning it is still in abnormal condition and should not be interpreted to have ceased unrest. Alamin naman natin ang mainit na balita sa mundo ng showbiz. Narito ang report ni Pauline Del Rosario.
Hindi talaga nakulong ang veteran actor na si Roderick Paulate. Yan ang naging paglilinaw mismo ng komedyante matapos magtaka ang maraming netizens kung bakit siya nakagawa pa ng proyekto sa kabila ng inilabas na hatol ng korte laban sa kanya. Kasama si Kuya Dick sa pelikulang In His Mother's Eye na pinagbibidahan ng matalik niyang kaibigan na si Diamond star Maricel Soriano. At sa mga hindi aware, last January nang mahatulan ng parusang pagkakakulong si Roderick dahil sa kasong kinasasangkutan niya kaugnay sa pag-hire umano ng mga ghost employee noong nagsisilbi pa siya bilang konsehal ng Quezon City. Sa naging interview with Ogie Diaz, sinabi ni Roderick na totoo yung lumabas sa news, pero hindi naman sinabi kung ano yung mga legal procedure na mangyayari. Naglabas din ng sama ng loob ang komedyante dahil naging unfair daw ang pagbabalita sa kanya. Ang tanong pa niya, bakit hindi pinagpestahan noong na-dismiss na ang kanyang kaso sa Court of Appeals? Ito po si Pauline Del Rosario at yan ang Bandera Chika natin for today.
Here's the latest roundup of today's top stories. Vice President Sara Duterte says she will no longer pursue her office's requested 500 million peso secret funds. Senator Pia Cayetano says Duterte has also dropped DepEd's confidential fund request of 150 million pesos. Philippine economy grows by 5.9% in third quarter of the year. And the Meralco hikes November power rates. And these are the stories you need to know today. I'm Neil Mercado. Follow INQUIRER.net on Facebook, X, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and Reddit. For more stories, visit INQUIRER.net. Good evening.